Someone on the left actually spoke out against Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's outrageous comments, and guess what happened? President Trump kicked off his campaign with a huge fundraising haul that has the Democrats freaking out, and Joe Biden opened his mouth, and of course, well, you'll see. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-minute news hour.
And God bless the United States of America.
All right, friends, we're going to talk about President Trump, but first, I want to talk about my friends over at Bottle Breacher. You guys need to check these out. I have some of their products, and they are awesome. We're talking about a veteran-owned company, made in America products. It's the best in man gifts and groomsmen gifts, corporate and promotional items. Just go to bottlebreacher.com, use coupon code Bobby13-A1 for 20% off your next purchase. And again, I have them. They're awesome. Just go to bottlebreacher.com, use coupon code Bobby13-A1. All right, so President Trump kicked off his campaign in Orlando, and the rally was just awesome. Here's a clip.
It's a movement made up of hardworking patriots who love their country, love their flag, love their children, and who believe that a nation must care for its own citizens first.
So I just love that. I love hitting the patriotism note because it hits on what brings Americans together, what unites us as Americans. And here's another clip, another issue that I think is really strong for him.
Our country is now thriving, prospering, and booming. And frankly, it's soaring to incredible new heights.
So those two clips that I showed you actually occurred near the beginning of his speech. It was a long speech. He hit on a number of items, but I bring those up because I think they are key to his reelection. If he focuses on patriotism and the issues that unite America together, the things that they are concerned about as Americans, like protecting our border and having jobs and things like that, strong foreign policy, coupled with a booming economy, low taxes, low unemployment across the board, surging stock market, that is a winning strategy. Focus on patriotism and the economy and challenge the Democrats to beat you on that. It's just awesome. So how did he do? How did this speech resonate with his supporters, his donors, his base? Well, the media always likes to look at the 24-hour fundraising cycle. You announce for president, how much did you make in the first 24 hours? Joe Biden made $6.3 million brought in through donations. Bernie Sanders, $5.9 million. Beto, $6.1. So all of them around that $6 million mark. President Trump brought in close to $25 million in the first 24 hours. It was $24.8 million in the first 24. That beats the top 5 Democrats, Biden, Bernie, Beto, Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, all 5 of those combined for their 24 hours. But to put it in perspective, look at this from the New York Times about quarterly fundraising. Check this out. Mr. Sanders raised the most money of any Democrat in the first quarter of the year, $18.2 million, followed by Ms. Harris at $12 and Mr. O'Rourke at $9.4. Mr. Biden, who entered the race in April, has not yet filed a quarterly fundraising report, but told donors this week that his campaign had raised nearly $20 million so far. So, in quarterly fundraising, no one comes close to what Trump did in one day. It's just absolutely amazing. Biden is reporting $20 million for a quarter. That seems to be the most so far. But speaking about Biden, oh my gosh, he's shooting himself in the foot, and I think the Democrats shoot themselves when they go after him. But his timing in his week couldn't have been worse. Of course, this is a week we celebrate the emancipation of the slaves, and the Democrats use that occasion to bring up hearings, to have hearings in the House on reparations for African Americans for slavery. So on that backdrop, Joe Biden gave a speech to donors, to supporters, talking about his days, how good it was working with segregationists back in the day, how we could still do business, and how he called African American men boys. So, I mean, give me a break. Could the timing be any worse? And yet he continues to do this. So, of course, that gives ammunition to the Democrats who go after him. Cory Booker had this to say from the Washington Times. Senator Cory Booker said someone running for president should understand the negative connotations of calling an African-American man boy. The indignity to watch another man call my father boy, to have myself have older men when I was a man, to use those kinds of terms. These are the kind of things that do cause hurt and harm, the senator said. So when asked to apologize, Biden said no. He said, I'm not racist. I'm not going to apologize. Booker should apologize to me, which just cracks me up because to Biden, it's from a different era. It's like he doesn't think he did anything wrong. And at that time, probably not many people thought anything of it. But in today's culture, the left will go after everything like that. And they are working hard, the fringe left, to tear Biden down, which is good news for Republicans because sitting in second place is, proclaimed socialist Bernie Sanders. So have Bernie Sanders, a socialist, run against President Trump on the economy. It's just a loser deal, but the Democrats are going out of their way, those on the far left, to tear down Biden, and he's not helping himself at all by saying things like that. And in addition, earlier this week, the Washington Post gave him 3 Pinocchios for comments that he made during talking about American poverty. Here's a report from the Daily Caller. The Washington Post fact checker dinged former Vice President Joe Biden Thursday for what he called flat-out wrong claim he made Monday about the number of Americans living in poverty. We have almost half the people in the United States living in poverty, Biden said at the Poor People's Campaign Presidential Forum in D.C. The number of Americans living in poverty is closer to 14% using supplemental poverty measure and 12.3% using the official poverty measure. So Washington Post awarded the Democrat frontrunner 3 Pinocchios, which indicates a significant factual error for the claim. Wow, what a week. And the other person who's had a bad week is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez for her absolutely outrageous comments on comparing ICE detention facilities at the southern border to concentration camps that she referenced from, the early 20th century, meaning Nazi Germany. So I wondered, and I mentioned this on the show, we talked about it in the comments, if any Democrat or anyone on the left was going to speak up. And most people thought they wouldn't, and they've been relatively quiet, but someone did. Chuck Todd over at MSNBC, and he also hosts Meet the Press for NBC on Sunday, actually spoke out. And for those of you who missed it, here's what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said on Instagram.
The United States is running concentration camps on our southern border. And that is exactly what they are. They are concentration camps. And if that doesn't bother you, we can have, okay, whatever.
And then she followed that up with this tweet. And for the shrieking Republicans who don't know the difference between concentration camps are not the same as death camps. Concentration camps are considered by experts as mass detention of civilians without trial. So that's what ICE facilities are holding people till we can figure out what to do with them. Are they there for hearings, for asylum? We need to find out if they are for real, if they have criminal records, what they're doing. They are being held. They're not being held because we want to exterminate them as they did in Nazi Germany. And Chuck Todd, like I said, over at MSNBC, actually spoke out. He actually called her on it, and here's what he had to say.
But Congresswoman, tens of thousands were also brutalized, tortured, starved, and ultimately died in concentration camps, camps like Dachau. If you want to criticize the shameful treatment of people at our southern border, fine. You'll have plenty of company, but be careful comparing them to Nazi concentration camps, because they're not at all comparable in the slightest.
So he referenced Nazi concentration camps, and that's appropriate because there's no doubt that's what she's referring to. When we talk about concentration camps, people know what you're talking about. They know we're talking about Nazi concentration camps in World War II. That's what comes to mind. That's the common reference. Common sense tells you that's what they're saying. But of course, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez fired back on Chuck Todd, tweeting this. Well, Chuck Todd, the fact that you slipped in Nazi when I never said that is pretty unfortunate. Almost as fortunate as the fact that you spent this whole time without discussing DHS freezers, dog pounds, missing children, and human rights abuses that uphold use of this term. All right, so again, everyone knows she was talking about that. But Chuck also brought up a very interesting point on this idea that the left just treats her as untouchable. And here's what he said about that.
Why are we so sheepish calling out people we agree with politically these days? Obviously, this isn't a Democratic Party thing. It's an even bigger problem on the Republican side of the aisle when it comes to President Trump and the reluctance there. Are we really so ensconced in our political bubbles, liberal versus conservative, that we cannot talk about right versus wrong anymore? Some things are bigger than partisanship, or at least they used to be.
So, folks, I can't stand Chuck Todd. It's obvious. Anytime you see him interview a conservative or a Republican, it's just he's on the left. He's no friend of ours. But in this case, he's speaking the truth. And this is what we need to be able to call out people that we agree with politically if they're not advancing our cause, if they're diverting attention from our main goals. If Trump goes off the rails on some Twitter rant that takes away from our goals on a particular policy, then his advisors and we should tell him to calm down. Don't do that. Stick with the policy. Things are going great. And on the left, again, it seems like the farther you are to the left, the more untouchable you are. And AOC, with her Green New Deal and socialism, is about as untouchable as they get. And as soon as Chuck Todd spoke, he was attacked. Carlos Maza over at Vox tweeted, "Genuinely one of the most shameful Chuck Todd segments I've ever seen. This is what happens when you treat neutrality as a virtue. You end up with journalists who lack the moral courage to name evil when they see it, and who care more about semantics than humanity." All right, and that's not all. We have a Democrat strategist who tweeted this. Would someone get this gutless little blank Chuck Todd a spot on Fox and Friends couch so he can do this blank without continuing to embarrass the Meet the Press name? So see, this is what happens. And folks, I want to bring up some very interesting facts because she talks about these detention facilities as it's some racist thing, and yet they're there for a reason. We need to find out who these people are. And DHS and Border Patrol, or in DHS, you have Border Patrol and you have ICE. They did reports on two of the most recent caravans that went through Central America and made it to the U.S. There was one headed to California, October of 2018, and one just this year in January. And they interviewed, they did research, and they found a staggering number, in my opinion, of criminals who were embedded with this caravan. And the numbers were just outrageous. Here's a report. It says, out of nearly 8,000 members within the caravan in October that went to California in October 2018, 660 already had run-ins with the law in the U.S., and nearly 40 of those were convicted of assault, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. 3 of them were convicted for murder. All right, in the next paragraph, this is a January 2019 one. There were 3,300 individuals in the caravan. 860 were found to have criminal histories. All right, so in the October 2018, that's 8.25% of the total caravan had criminal histories in the U.S. And the January 2019 one, 26%. Over a quarter of the people already had criminal involvement with the U.S. They weren't just starting out in Central America coming up. They've already been up. They've already had trouble, been kicked out, and they're doing it again. Folks, and this is why we have those detention facilities, and this is why her comments are absolutely so outrageous. Folks, that's our show for today. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Next show is Monday. I hope you tune in. Please subscribe, and when you do, please hit that bell. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is the 13-Minute News Hour. Okay, friends, just a little reminder before you go, and no, this does not count against my 13 minutes. Please hit the subscribe button below and tell your friends. And if you happen to miss our last show, you can check it out right here. And also for great conservative news and commentary, please check out GOPUSA.com. All right, folks, we'll see you on the next show. Have a great day.